recording so we can go back. There we go. I always forget about that voice. So we do have some Slido here, or if you'd like to jump in and do that with the QR code, or you can go to slido.com. So the first one that we had was having to use AI tools in your legal work. And this is what I'm definitely seeing. Most people are using it on a daily and weekly basis. So people who say that lawyers are not jumping on the AI bandwagon, I think are mistaken. So now let me flip over to, I have made this entirely too small, to go to the next question here, if it'll let me do that. If not, you know what? We are just going to skip the rest of this altogether because it is a small group, and I'm going to head over to my presentation. Thank you for bearing with me. Yep, okay, so you guys can see that, hopefully, my screen there.
Yep.
So I want to just jump in really quickly with some stats about like why are we talking about AI? And again, this is more a basic, very basic training, and we have different, more advanced trainings that we do. But one of the things that we have seen with our tool in particular is we have a team and they rigorously tested this. And with the AI contract that we have, the first pass tool, they save 6 minutes per vendor agreement per page. So 6 minutes per page on a vendor agreement. Obviously, if you have a 25-page vendor agreement, right, that's 2.5 hours of time saved. And over the year, that becomes quite a lot of time. And none of us love doing vendor agreements. I think we can all agree on that. So these are some reasons about, why what AI has helped. It's not only just review, but also we've seen it speed up deal cycles. So on the sales side, one of our clients saw 30% faster deals with using AI. Now, I like to be clear in my positioning when I start this to, calm down any fears, but really I believe that we won't be completely replaced by AI, but it will change how we work. And that's what I get to do, is talk about, okay, what are different ways that we can work and how can we use AI? Briefly, I introduced myself earlier, but I am a California licensed attorney. I live in Copenhagen, and 12 of the last 15 years I've spent in-house. So I've had some private practice experience, but really in-house counsel is near and dear to my heart. And I've been teaching AI since just after ChatGPT came out. I don't consider myself an expert, but just an avid user and want to share best practices. So since especially we are a smaller group today, please ask questions. So come off mute, or you can also use the chat. I'm multitask and I'm moving this right now. I have the chat open over here. So if you would prefer typing, you can do that. There are no silly questions. We're all at different places in our journey. And quite honestly, from most lawyers and legal professionals, I get really great questions. So I encourage questions. I also encourage you to share your experiences because this is so new and we're all learning together. Let's add to the community so then we have shared experience to push ourselves forward. So what are we going to do today? What are the basics of today? What are the objectives? It's to understand the difference between AI tools. And there, I like to say broad purpose tools like ChatGPT and Claude versus legal specific tools like Wordsmith, Harvey, Lagora, those kind of tools. We can talk a little bit about how to select a tool, although I see most of you are already using that, so I might skip over that one a little bit, and then focus really on how to write clear and effective prompts, where that is tool agnostic. If you do have specific tool questions, I'm also happy to answer those. Broad purpose tools, and then Wordsmith. Due to my position at Wordsmith, I have not in a long time used like other legal specific tools, but I can tell you what we've heard. So at the end of this, you will get this slide deck. We have an online prompting guide. You have access to the Wordsmith Academy, where we're going to continually put new content up there every week. If you are not a customer, then we also give you a 2-week free trial of Wordsmith, so then you can try it out and see how it compares to the tools you're using. Also, last week we launched a legal AI engineering guide and framework, and I will be building courses off of that. So I will send that to you as well. So now let's focus briefly on the different tools, right? We have broad purpose tools, which is ChatGPT, Claude, Copilot, Gemini, and Perplexity. And then we have legal specific tools, Wordsmith, Harvey, Lagora, GC, AI, and Spellbook. And I just want to dive in a little bit into how and why those are different. And then while we're here, if you want to just throw what tools you're using in the chat, that would be great. So then I have an idea and we can always tweak some of the content for that. So whether you're using ChatGPT or legal specific tools, just let me know what tools you are using in the chat. So for broad purpose tools, there's the chat interface that everyone, I believe, is familiar with because you said you're using these tools, and it goes straight to the large language model and then comes back and returns information to you. It's fairly simple. You can, there's in ChatGPT custom GPTs or projects. There's other features that you can use, but still when you're chatting in that chat window, it goes to the large language model and gives you information back. It is probabilistic based off of patterns. Well, legal specific AI is different. And so we're showing Wordsmith's architecture, but this might apply also to other legal specific tools. So you have the user interface. And for us, we have chat, we have first pass, we have workspaces, reports, and then it goes through your prompt will go through a layer of legal intelligence that comes from general counsel, law firms, our legal engineers. And then after that, depending on what you have asked, it goes through another layer, which is really our engineers at work. For example, if you upload a contract, we're going to take that contract and then we're going to use RAG, which is retrieval augmented generation. So we're going to chunk up the contract and work with it in a way that we know AI likes. Because unfortunately, AI, although it gets better all the time, when it reads contracts, especially broad purpose AI tools, it actually kind of reads it like I guess, a human. Like it's really good in the beginning. It kind of gets lost in the middle, and then it finishes strong at the end. So if you're asking it, with one prompt and upload a contract, you might not be getting the best results, although they are getting better. So we want to make sure that what is going through and your request is you're getting that precision that we need in legal, and we're making sure that no part of that contract is being skipped over or forgotten about. And then finally, it goes to the large language model, and we pick the models based on what your request is. So for example, Claude we found is much better at drafting. So if there's a drafting request that you've done, then we send it out to Claude. Perfect. And I just am looking over here. We have people who are using ChatGPT and Gemini, and then also ChatGPT, and then there's the DocuSign AI as well. So thank you for throwing those in there. I do have in here questions to ask legal vendors, but I think we'll probably just skip right to the prompting because that's, I think, what everyone is looking for. And again, we'll start at the very beginning and then get more complex. So we make sure that everyone is coming along the journey with us. So for very basic, I think everyone knows this by now, right? If you have a general prompt, you're going to get general results. If you have a very specific prompt, you're going to get more specific results. So it's really about adding context so that the AI understands where you're coming from and can give you the information that you want. So as I've been doing this, I first started out and I had a structure that I use called traps. So that's, each it was an acronym. But as the models have gotten better, we've actually seen that you need to give them less information and a little bit less context, and it's able to infer some information. So we've moved from traps to something that is more simple. And if you go to the prompting guides of ChatGPT, Claude, Copilot, and Gemini, they basically are saying the version of the same thing where what task do you want AI to do, right? What are you asking it to do? Are you asking it to draft an email? Do you want it to summarize a contract? Do you want it to pull out, look at the IP clauses? What do you want the task? And then what is that goal? So it's important to not only tell it what you want it to do, but what is the purpose or the goal of that activity? If you want it to write an email, do you want it to persuade someone? Do you want to inform someone? And then format is really important as well. So we've seen with some of the broad purpose tools, if you say you are a legal counsel or you ask it, say, act like a legal counsel, it tends to be more verbose and wordy and give a longer answer. And I know in-house, I don't like that. So sometimes I will clarify, please do this in 3 bullet points, or I want no more than a paragraph. Also with format, I like to tell it about the audience, and we'll get to that later. So if you tell it about the audience, it then really helps refine what it is that you're going to get from that. So we'll start off with an example here. So, not a great prompt is just review this agreement. And so if you have a legal trainee that just started at your company or law firm today, and you walk over to them and you drop in an agreement on their desk and you say, review this, they're not going to know what to do. And so they're just going to guess and make up what it is that you want. The LLM is going to act in the same way. It's a people pleaser and it's just going to make stuff up. They're getting much better again, from where we first started to now. Gets much better. But in order to get the information that you want, a way that you can improve this prompt is simply by adding a little bit more context. And to do that, you could use the task format and goal formula. So for example, we say, review our company's consultancy agreement that has been redlined by the company wishing to purchase our services. And redlined is important. I'll explain that later. Then the format, I love tables. So list the changes in a table showing strike through for deletions and bold for additions with a column explaining those changes, the impact of those changes. So that's what I want, and I want it to be formatted in a particular way. And again, these are for broad purpose tools. And the goal is to protect our company and our IP. We need to assess what changes we can accept and which ones we should push back on. So we're giving it, it's only, I don't even know if I'd call these paragraphs, but 3 or 4 different sentences to give it additional context. And so here's the agreement that I have that is redlined. And now we're going to try that first terrible prompt in ChatGPT. Broad purpose tool, right? Review this agreement and what is it going to do? I've not given it anything else. So it's going to be like, all right, I'm going to pull out the key strengths. I'm going to give you some issues and recommendations. And here you can see it says, it looks like there's a typo between 8 and 15 days. And it's actually not a typo. It's been redlined. So it was 15 days and the counterparty put in 8 days. So because I did not even tell it that it was redlined, it just read it like a regular agreement. And it's looking like there's a typo. So it didn't really recognize the redlining. So when I come over here and I use that task format goal and I tell it that it's redlined, I actually see a dramatic improvement, and it recognizes that the 8 is a red line and someone is making a suggestion, changing it from 15 to 8. And you can see that there, and it actually says, okay, push back on this. It seems better from our point of view. 15 days is better than 8 days. And so now I have this table and it's telling me, because I gave it the goal, it's telling me, should I push back? Should I reject? Should I revise? And, should I accept or clarify? And then it's giving me the recommendations based on what I've given it. So just that little bit really tweaks it. And then again, sometimes we have to give it words like redline to understand what it can do. Now, just quickly, so then you can see that was a broad purpose tool. Then if we're looking at Wordsmith, which is a legal specific tool, if we just tell it to review this agreement, there's a lot more going on behind the scenes. And so automatically it's going to come out with a table with key terms, and then, changes and suggestions. It's going to highlight that and give us key concerns. And then one of the things that our tool also does is it gives us citations. So then you can go in exactly to the agreement and read it, because one of the things that is a challenge with AI is verifying the output. And so we wanted to make sure that you can go in and verify that the AI has summarized that completely. So giving lawyers that ability to quickly ensure that the AI is working like it should. So now we've also seen, I mentioned treating AI like an intern. So we do think that you should, treat AI like a person. Interestingly, if you think of it as a colleague, it actually helps with your communication with the AI, and it encourages feedback loops and a conversation. So most of the tools, all the tools, with maybe Copilot's a little bit different, but for the majority of them, they're built to be interactive and chat. So it's not just going up and doing one prompt and then that's the end of it. there's this idea that we're supposed to iterate on it and that you and the tool are supposed to have a conversation. So if you treat it like a person, sometimes that really helps people, especially when you're writing your prompts or communicating with it, communicate the way you would with a colleague, then that can help give you better results. But still, we need to remember that AI doesn't have intent and it doesn't reason and it doesn't understand. So it is just replicating patterns, and it's really good at predicting what should come next and putting, really complexity together. It can sound confident and still be very wrong. This is getting better, and I'll give you some tips about how to prevent hallucinations. But we need to remember, especially if you're talking about, esoteric areas or, anything that hasn't been written about a lot on the internet, it can make things up. And interestingly, when it's making up case law, it is selecting and making it look so much like real case law that some of the like LexisNexis and Thomson Reuters practical law are actually having problems flagging the fake cases because it sees parts of it as that they're actually real. So it can be hard to distinguish sometimes. But we need to remember that it lacks memory unless you provide it. So when you're in one chat, it should have the memory of that chat. Depending how long you are chatting, it might lose some of the context at the beginning, but it should maintain that. Once you leave that chat, unless you have memory turned on in ChatGPT, it's not going to remember that information about you. And that's where then custom GPTs or workspaces or gems in Gemini come in, where you can give it the persistent context of documents, files, and or custom instructions. One thing that I like to do is I like to just sort of like say like word vomit, brain dump context. Like, what do I want to do? And I have misspellings. I stopped using punctuation, and there are some papers that said that that might actually help prompting. So I don't worry about it being absolutely perfect. I just, type in what I'm thinking, and then I will use one of these to start a conversation. I will ask it a question and then say, provide your reasoning. Or I'll say, I need to accomplish this. What other information do you need for me to do this? And then also, if it's something that I didn't want, right, I'll tell it that's not what I wanted. I wanted you to do this. What went wrong? So part of what we can do with AI is we can actually interrogate it and ask it to help improve and then to identify what went wrong. Now, earlier I mentioned AI personas, and these are all just different tips to help you get the most out of these AI tools. You can use a persona as an act like a general counsel of a Fortune 500 company with 25 years experience. That helps you and the AI to focus it. Now, we've also seen if you're asking it to do legal work, you can sometimes ask it to act like a CEO, and then you're going to get a little bit more business friendly advice. And since you're the lawyer with the legal expertise, that might help you, fill in some of, let's say, a little bit, maybe not a weakness, but we're not looking as heavily necessarily on the business impact. So I thought that was interesting, and that's something fun to play with. Now we have the AI personas, and most of the AI tools like that, and they recommend that in their prompting guides. But there's also the audience persona. I like thinking of audience personas as who am I writing for? Who is my audience? That's just, good communication and writing skills. And that will have a bigger impact on the outcome of your prompt than the AI persona, asking it to act like something. You can use both of these together, that's fine. But really, the audience persona of saying, like, this is for my boss who will read no more than 3 bullet points that need to start with action verbs, right? If you use that versus explain something to me like a 5-year-old, those are going to be very different. Now we have the next one is how do we focus the AI? And this is really, if you have a longer prompt, we're getting into more complex. We need the AI to focus on something. There's 2 different approaches. There's like threats, penalties, so negative consequences versus rewards or positive consequences. So normally with all of these, you don't have to threaten it or reward it to answer in bullet points. This is simply just an example. So you can say, if you do not answer in bullet points, you will be punished, you will be penalized, you will lose points. All of these things tell it that this is really important to me. I have this long prompt, and this is the most important part of it. And the reason that it understands caps um, is because a lot of it was trained on Reddit. And that's also why the personas work. If you go to Reddit and people are answering questions, they'll usually introduce themselves and say, like, I'm a general counsel of this experience, and this is my opinion on this question. Equally, I'm sure we've all seen on Twitter or X and Reddit, when people get angry, they write in caps. And so the AI has learned that. The reason that we're using sort of punishment, penalties, and rewards, either of these two things comes from machine learning and how when humans were training AI, they were using this model. So it really understands that. So if you don't feel comfortable with threatening or writing in all caps and yelling at the AI, you can use rewards or giving them points, right? Positive reinforcement. That works well, but it doesn't seem to work as well as yelling at it and penalizing it or punishing it. And that's kind of, we've asked a lot of people. So that seems to work, even if it doesn't feel great for some people. Additionally, don't take it to the extreme. We had someone that set threatened death, and the AI didn't really, it's not right, it's not mortal, it doesn't understand mortality, it's software. So it really didn't understand that, so it didn't improve it. So you got to keep it in the punishment penalties area, not the very extreme death. So now we also have hallucination prevention, and this might seem fairly obvious, but starting with the source. So if you have the document or if you have the website that you want it to go to, give it that source material, and then it will be grounded in that, and it's less likely to hallucinate or go and pick the wrong information if you're using web search. And then you can ask follow-up questions to show its work, to show citations. You can ask it to show its reasoning. So these are ways that you can help hallucination prevention. Additionally, if you want it to flag when it's uncertain, instead of it making something up because it's a people pleaser, you can say, if you're unsure about a part of your answer or the source, flag it clearly. And you could write this in all caps, and you could say, flag it clearly, or you will be penalized, or points will be deducted, right? If this is usually very important for lawyers, so then you can focus the AI's attention on this. And then you can ask follow-up questions like, what assumptions did you make to answer this? What is your confidence level for each section, right? High, medium, or low? And then where can I double check answers for this? So follow-up questions to that. Another hallucination prevention strategy, and really this goes to also bias and gaps in reasoning. Rather than saying, interpret this clause for me, maybe ask it for a couple interpretations or 3 different ways that this clause could be interpreted under New York law. That way it's not just going down one path and one reasoning. You're getting, okay, here are the 3, and then you have a little bit more control, and you get to pick which one then you want to keep moving forward with. And again, this is hallucination prevention, but also looking at a little bit of bias that's built in there. And follow-up questions could be, what are the pros and cons of each interpretation? One I like to do when I'm working on contracts or negotiations is saying, okay, here's my position, here's the other side's position. What answer would most likely be accepted by the counterparty and why? So that's also some great follow-up. Now we need to verify. So we like to think of AI as sort of a first drafter, maybe even second drafter. It's not the final reviewer unless you're checking for typos and grammar errors. In that sense, I like it to be the final reviewer to make sure I don't have any. But for more substantive work, especially when it comes to law, right, you're using it to help you get ahead, to brainstorm, to come up with ideas, or to draft clauses, but always making sure that you are reviewing it, because we are not at a point yet where we fully trust AI. You can ask it the same question 10 times and you might get slightly different answers every time, and that's just the nature of AI. So we always say that you need to review it. Now, interestingly, for broad purpose tools, right, that just go straight to the LLM, that's different from legal specific tools where we're doing a lot in the back end to try to give you that consistency. So we're harnessing the power of AI, but we're doing things so then if you ask the same question 10 times, you're more likely going to get the same result. And then depending on the feature, for example, our first pass tool, that you should get the same answer every time because that is highly engineered in the background. So thinking about how you're using AI and what actions you're using can be really helpful. Another great thing that I love about AI is it can be a prompting coach for you, right? So you can state your goal in some context and then ask one of these questions, right? You could just write, improve my prompt, or how would you rewrite my prompt to be more creative? If you were trying to persuade the other side to do this, how would you modify this prompt? So you can have the AI teach you while you're also working. And we've also seen, and I think this is a great suggestion that I got from someone, is okay, let's say you have your prompt, but let's say you have a very lengthy conversation because it's not giving you what you want. And eventually when you get to what you want, you then ask the AI, okay, knowing that this was my goal and this was my first prompt, and this is actually the answer that I wanted all the way down here. How could I have gotten there faster? What should my first prompt have been? So then I didn't have to do all of this back and forth. So those are great ways to use AI to then teach you how to be a better prompter. So again, some of the basics are make sure you have a conversation, have a clear and specific task, break complex into steps. Then we have different strategies for preventing hallucinations and always verify your results. And so what I'll show you too is what we'll give you after this, and then I'll show you this, and then we can jump into some actual examples. So if you have any, things that you've struggled with, or you want to know if we want to do Gemini or ChatGPT, then we can go in and we can look at some of that as well. So you'll get this legal prompting cheat sheet. It's a link that you can go to, and it's giving you different modes and roles. So those are the personas, different types of formatting, and then it gets more complex into this is how we structure a prompt for reviewing agreement. These are how we think that you should structure prompts for these more complex actions. And then we have the Academy, which we're adding to all the time, so you can learn more about that. And then this actually is out now, your team's AI playbook for legal excellence. So this is a really cool framework that we're going to be building courses out. So there's 3 different modes, and then you can actually gauge yourself and then move through the different models by building on your learning and doing certain practices. So that's what's going to be coming soon in the Academy, but you can take a look at the framework now. So I'm going to pause here for a second and see if we have any questions or thoughts or anything that anyone wants to share. Nope. All right, do we want to take a look then at, I see we have ChatGPT and then also Gemini. Does anyone here have a preference of what we go to first? Or alternatively, I know we could also look at Wordsmith, but it depends because I want to make sure that you get value here. No preferences from anyone? I'm gonna stop this real quick and then I will open up. Has anyone here created like a custom GPT or a gem or a workspace? Those are my favorite. And you know what? We're going to go into ChatGPT, and then I can also show you it in, let me just pull this up, and then I'll also show it to you in Wordsmith because it's pretty cool. And that's where I think if you're doing repetitive tasks or anything where you're working with documents and you want specific outcomes, I think moving from the chat functionality, let me just make sure, here we go. Okay. All right, so this is my ChatGPT account. We're going to make it a lot bigger. And I don't have a demo account because I don't work for them. So you'll see everything that I have. But when we are here, right, in the chat that we have been talking about, this is where it's sort of the most wide and the most creative. And so more likely to get hallucinations or not exactly what you want, right? For legal, especially, we want to focus the AI and really hone it in on what it is that we want to do. I mean, it's great that we've got all of these tools. By the way, I don't know if anyone has run deep research, but deep research is really great for doing legal research because it provides all of your citations. And if you type something into here and you're not precise enough, it will have follow-up questions to ask you. Like, so then it really makes sure, like, okay, this is exactly what you want. And then you get an in-depth report. So deep research is definitely something to try out and to play with. So if we're here on ChatGPT, and then again, I'll show you it on Wordsmith, you can come over here and you've got these over there, but we're going to create if we go to GPTs, right, we open this, and so these are my GPTs here. If you click here, you can go here and get any kind of like GPT that you want, or you can build your own. So you can see people have made all sorts of different, not a lawyer, GPTs as it relates to law. I like to make my own. So you can see that there's a bunch here. I just like this one. So we're gonna use this one. And I also have that one on Wordsmith. So quickly, in Denmark, if you want to name your baby a name, it has to be on a list. And if it's not on the list, then you actually have to go through this whole procedure to get it on the list by submitting a memo to court, and you have to make sure that name complies with name compliance laws. I like to show this one because we're doing multiple different things, all within the same or all within the same GPT. So what is a GPT? If I go here and I edit, then you can configure it yourself, the name, the description. Here are my instructions. And then here is my knowledge. So a custom GPT or a workspace or a gem in Gemini is made up of knowledge, your custom instructions, what you tell it that you want it to do. So it's always going to maintain this information. And the reason that I like this example is because what happens is that I go here and I can test it. And so I have also testing data. I know that this name is not on, Neville is not on the list. And so it's going to say that, okay, it's not on the list and here's what we need to do. And before we do that, we need to evaluate it and I need this information. So what it's doing is going out and it's looking at the knowledge and searching the internet to check the name. Then after that, it's going to walk me, get information from me, the user, to then ultimately create a memo and then tell me where to send that memo based on where I live in Denmark. And so, I'll say just Neville is a real name for a girl, and critically, I can use it if I was in the US because I'm American. Again, we don't have to spell right. And so what it's going to do now is that, yes, so now I'm going to say like draft the memo. So this took surprisingly like a really long time, right? Because I had to go and find the naming laws and made sure that my naming laws, and then how do I submit it and do all of this? And it was all in Danish. And now, right, in less than 2 minutes, I can have a memo that I know works, download it, and then, where do I send it? And then it tells me where I need to send it. And the same thing happens also so it gives me the instructions there. The same thing happens when we go to Wordsmith and we go to workspaces. I think I've had one in here. Let me look. Yes. So we've got a whole bunch of different ones right here, but gems, Wordsmith workspaces, all of these are working in the exact same way where you have these custom instructions. And here you can see I've done it more clearly. I've updated it. It's better where I use letters and then numbers, and I'm telling it what to do each step of the way. And then I've turned on my documents here and I can link them. So then if I updated them, I was able to do that. And then a cool thing that we also have more than ChatGPT or GEMS is we can have we have documents, or we can add a response. So if someone asks a specific question, I can respond with a specific response, right? We're talking again about making this more specific and actually um, tailored to what we need. We can also hook it up to different channels. So if I was working in Slack, I could be interacting with the business back and forth in Slack, and they actually never have to come here, or you can email it in. So one of the things that I do, I love emailing like giant long email chains into workspaces and have them summarize and pull out that information. We can also connect to Zendesk, and we can set up alerts. So if someone, especially if you have this connected to a Slack channel, if someone mentions something, then it pings this person, and then we can also generate reports. So once we move from that chat window, we can then start moving into creating workspaces. You can do it for NDAs. We have it even more complex where you can then integrate it with third-party software as well. So then you're, pulling information in. We have one that's a web crawler that goes out, scans the internet for updates in employment laws in certain jurisdictions, then pulls all that information, puts it into a chart, goes and checks the company's internal chart, and then flags the company and said, hey, Brazil's minimum wage actually has increased. That is not reflective in your internal database. So instead of someone having to manually go out and search and get all these let's say newsletters and then check their database, we're actually just running it all the time, pulling information in, and then the legal counsel gets a ping and is like, hey, you need to update this, and here's the information that you need to update it with. So there's all sorts of different things that you can do to speed up workflows, complete templates with these um, gems, custom GPTs, projects in Claude, or workspaces in Wordsmith. And I see Anna over here, you said, I used deep research to create a summary of the different models and which model works best for legal. That's very cool. What did it say? Because I've done that as well. So
It was pretty long. I don't know if I have permission to share my screen actually, so maybe not, but it basically outlined not just ChatGPT. I thought maybe ChatGPT is going to be very much favoring its own models, but it actually recommended Claude where it thought it was the best one. And it kind of suggested using both to interact with each other. And maybe Claude is going to pick up things that the ChatGPT doesn't pick up on. And it recommended using like a playbook style structure with Claude specifically, where you kind of give it your own kind of review guidelines and then ask it to review contracts with that in mind. And it gave kind of based on my research, I thought I knew what the best models are in terms of ChatGPT. Maybe it's the GPT-4 4.0, I think at the moment with deep research, and for Claude, I think is it Opus now that it's like the best one. It kind of confirmed that it tends to be the best for legal tasks. But then it did flag up that that's more for the complex reasoning style tasks. And then it said, but if you just needed to draft emails, these are actually the better models for that. So it was, I think, O3 for ChatGPT and Claude Sonnet for the Claude side. So it's pretty good, and you can download it as a PDF, and it was basically ready to share with the team because we have a few team members who are short on time. They're curious about AI, but they wouldn't have the time to like go and figure things out like that. So it's kind of a nice 3 pager report that I could just share with the team, and it included kind of tips and tricks for them to use as well. So it was pretty good. And the other one I used it for, we did kind of a legal in-house salary benchmarking exercise internally, which maybe took us, I'd say, 3 to 4 weeks overall when we were trying to fit it into our usual work stream and trying to do it here and there. And it took, hours and hours of work, but also took a long time for us to complete. So I kind of knew what our findings were. So I asked ChatGPT to repeat the exercise, and it researched for 9-10 minutes, and it found exactly the same kind of findings. It gave the exact same benchmarking figures there. And then he ended up giving me recommendations like, this is how you should structure your CV if you're looking for a new job. And I was like, well, let's stop here. I'm getting too excited now.
I mean,
I was pretty impressed.
That's the beauty of it, right? We can ask all of these different things and it can help us. And I do like to also go back and forth between different models. And I follow Allie K. Miller on LinkedIn. I think she's like the #1 voice in AI for business. And she's running her team AI first, so she's got great tips on it, but then she also comes out with, exactly what you just said. And what we've also found is that Claude is definitely the best for drafting. ChatGPT is usually pretty good for brainstorming and more creative. And then I found that Gemini actually tends to be the most thorough, and so have other people. So Gemini, like when I asked it, let's say I was trying to, I'll like help it, like with like LinkedIn posts or things, and I'll play around with all of them. And Gemini wouldn't let me move forward unless I answered all of its questions. Whereas Claude and ChatGPT and Copilot, like they'll just keep going. But Gemini was like, no, I need you to answer these questions before I go forward. And then I believe one of my friends, Kyle, he was using Gemini, and it was like a 250-page contract, and it found inconsistencies that he did not find, right? I mean, 250 pages, is any of us going to be perfect? If I don't even know how many days that would take to review as a human, right? So ways that we can find to work with these tools and their strengths, to pair them with what we're doing, I think is great. Yeah, and then we asked, are you able to share the report with the group at all? Like, if you have a Word doc of the report, you can just drop it in the, oh, perfect. There we go. See, this is what I also love about AI and getting people together and talking about it, because we can share with everyone. So we have about 10 minutes left, and so I want to open it up either for people to share, or if we have any other specific questions or things that you've seen or that are bothering you, or any specific questions that we can help with. Does anyone have any problems we can tackle? No. Okay. Well, I mean, I can keep sharing examples as well, if we want. So one of the things actually that I do want to share, because when I first joined Wordsmith, I will say that I wasn't entirely convinced that like legal specific tools were that much better than ChatGPT and Claude, because like I love ChatGPT and I still use ChatGPT every day, but I now use Wordsmith to do legal work. And so one of the things that I actually thought was most interesting, and where you can really get the benefit, and where our legal tools different, is our first pass product. And so when we go here to reviews, we have reviews that we can do on contracts. So you can see all of these different contracts where I've done reviews, and the AI analysis has pulled out the issues. And then we also have different playbooks. So you can create your own playbook, or you can use some of ours. I did see that something was down in our channel. So hopefully hopefully this will work. But we have all these different types of playbooks. And so like, let's just look at this example agreement. So this is one I've already run. Sometimes it can take up 5 minutes to run. We have a chat over here where I've just uploaded the agreement, and what it does is it gives us suggestions. It gives us a summary of this, but more importantly is this playbook. So here, each of these is a check that's being run. And so like, let's see, limitation to liability. If we come here, this is the question that we're asking. And then we have an answer of AI reasoning. And then we give proposed red lines based on the question and how it's answered. And then it pulls you over into the red line document. So then I can look and read and make sure that I like the proposed red lines. I can dismiss them if I don't like them. I can say, actually, I don't want that. I want to leave the limitation to liability there, or I can apply them. Now it's regenerating the red lines because I have just said I don't want that one. But if we go back and look at all of these, so there are all of these checks, and what is happening for each one of these checks, we have like a page of prompts in the background for each one of these checks. So for you or I to get to this level of sophistication, we would have to use a custom GPT or a gem, and we would have to have extensive custom instructions and documentation to fine tune this. So this is the most narrowing of AI's power. And so each one of these checks, there is so much going on in the background to make sure that we have that legal precision and to make sure that it is, really working to make sure that it's not hallucinating and that it is looking very specifically for the information that we want. Also, there are dependencies within the agreement. So, the limitation to liability is going to relate to other clauses. And so we also are mapping that out in the background. So one of the examples that we were, testing it on was actually a lease agreement. So we have a lease agreement playbook, and we made it so then the end date was before the start date, so there was no term, and in that it failed the term check. And then it actually failed the is this a contract check because there was no term, and under Scottish law, that means it was an invalid contract. So we're making sure that you can see all of that and then making sure that when there are dependencies, those are then checked against one another. And so this is where broad purpose tools just aren't going to get to the same level of accuracy. And then because we know that no legal team works the same, you can actually edit the playbook as well. And because to make it, I don't want to say, we'll just make it error proof. Anytime we edit a playbook, we always make sure that you get a new one. So you're not going to mess up your company's playbook. And so you can go in and we add rules and we just give it a title, a description. We can also do preferred language, and then we save that rule, we drop in a playbook and we test it. So once you move to these more complex uh, actions with AI, there's a lot more iteration and testing. So with workspaces or custom GPTs or gems, you're going to need to test out your custom instructions and your knowledge to make sure it's performing in the same. And we do the same. We're constantly testing out our playbooks, and you can see that there. And with our reviews and making modifications as well. So these are some of the ways that legal specific tools are different than broad purpose tools. We also have a privacy area, right? This is all tailored for privacy. And again, with a lot of these, you can just email in questions and get email summaries back. So you don't even have to come into Wordsmith if you don't want. And then we've also added prompts that you can go and let's say we'll do privacy. So like redact PII, we go here and you can actually see this prompt. And this is what our team has put in here. And then you upload the agreement and it will redact it. So we've got things to just try to make it easier, templates. You can also add in context. So then this context is persistently with any of your chats. So you don't have to tell it what jurisdiction or your company profile or what language you want. And importantly, for people in the UK, because the US is the biggest market, and I apologize for my people, most things are written in American English, but you can set it to be British English so you can get your extra U's and your S's in and get rid of the Z's. So there's little things like that that we're doing just to make your life easier so then you don't have to constantly give those instructions to the other broad purpose models. So we have about 3 minutes left. So I will again stop there and see if there are any other questions or thoughts. And thank you so much for sharing, Anna, for sharing the overview of the chat. And I will be putting the slide deck up onto the Academy. I can also share with you right now our prompting guide in the chat, so you can go ahead and check that out. And the reason that we give you this is because we want you to play around and experiment. And so you can copy the full prompts there and then try them out in your tool of choice. And then we also have this legal AI engineering framework, which we're going to be building courses around, which I will share with you as well in the chat before we go. There we go. Boop. And so you can go in and check out the framework, and we'll be working on also ways to maybe, quiz yourself to see where your aptitude is, and then, recommend what courses you take after this. Again, this was just a very basic intro course to the basics, and it was tool agnostic. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. My email I will also put in the chat is laura@wordsmith.ai, or follow me on LinkedIn. You can ping me there. I'm always happy to talk about AI and also happy to talk to teams as well. So I really appreciate your time, and I'll upload the recording as well if you want to go back and watch it. And again, upload the slides so you can see those and have all the links. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Have a great day. Bye.
Thanks a lot.